Mijuxis, everyone, and good morning. My name is Desiree Acosta. I am the board president of Natives in Tech. Welcome to Natives in Tech Conference 2025. Many of you may recognize me from before. I have hosted this conference for a number of years now, and I'm really excited to have everyone join us again. So I am going to turn on the ability for everyone to turn on your cameras if you'd like. Give me just a moment. If you'd like to join us, please do. It's now turned on. Otherwise, I am going to kick off our conference today with more than just a warm welcome. I want to start today with a very actually important announcement to us as an organization. We have new board members, and over the last 2 years, myself and the Vice President, Natalie Contreras, along with the profound support of some community members who have helped us through a transition as we became the newest stewards of Natives in Tech. We've done a lot of work to build the infrastructure to make this board opportunity for growth happen. So it is really with my profound honor that I would like to announce Tiana Bigay as our treasurer, Sunny Myers as board member at large, overseeing partnerships and programming, Yolanda McCollum, board member and assistant treasurer for tribal programs, Joe Barone as board member and assistant treasurer at large, and board member at large, Stuti Dalmia. Natives in Tech's mission is to cultivate an ecosystem of Indigenous and non-Indigenous technologists, all working to benefit Indigenous peoples. In the last year, we adopted the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as our guiding framework for our values. So I really would just encourage everyone to please go look at what the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is. A lot of work has gone into that work when you start talking with elder community members about it, they're like, oh yeah, I know somebody, or I myself helped contribute to the commentary on that as it was being built. So it's something that's been very important to us. Thank you so much, Angela, for dropping that in the chat. But I was really just hoping to contextualize why you might see some of our framing today referencing that declaration. In the past, Natives in Tech has grown basically out of startup and into that toddler organization now, maybe even into teenager organization, welcoming these new board members. I really encourage you, and I will post them on our LinkedIn, which is where most people are coming from, the community. I'll post those on our LinkedIn, and just really want to celebrate these fantastic individuals and appreciate them for joining us. With that, today's programming begins with something that we've always done at Natives in Tech, which is to start by doing an interactive exercise together so that we can kind of know who's in the room with us and who is participating, as well as it functions as an opportunity for future thinking within the group. This is an organization named Natives in Tech. It is extremely important that we are reflective of the community. So this is the time every year that we do these interactive reflections, because it helps us literally guide the organization in a way that is reflective of the many communities that Indian country and beyond needs us to be reflective of with a name like Natives in Tech. And it's also our ethical duty. So I'm going to share my screen and kick us off quickly. But as I mentioned, it is with profound honor that we welcome everyone together today. So thank you very much for your attendance on both a personal and professional level. So who's in the room with us today? Of our attendees who RSVP'd, 72% identify as Indigenous or mixed. The participants and presenters are representative of over 40 organizations and collectives from universities, nonprofits, tech companies, and tribal or Indigenous-led initiatives, because you don't have to be formalized to have a valid voice and be treated as an equal in this space. As always, attendance is free. Everyone is welcome here. Natives in Tech is oriented around our mission. And so if our mission speaks to you, you are part of our community. All right. So what's on your mind today in 2 words? How are you feeling? This is just a touch base. Employment. Community. Learning. Hey, I see some muscles in there. Family, music. Look how cool this is. I love this. Look how big community is becoming. One of the things about natives in tech is we really are focused on making sure that folks can find one another, because I do not need to explain to a 72% Indigenous crowd why it is important that we be able to find one another. Okay. This is looking amazing. Look at it, everyone. Future building, overwhelmed, curious, seen, work deadlines. That's real. Hello to everyone who just joined us. We had a bunch of people just jump in. I will paste the link again because I saw we had like 6 people just join us. We're using this link here, and we are putting in what is most on your mind today in 1 or 2 words. Palestine, regeneration, plants. Me too. The freeze just hit where I am. Water. All right. Big old community one. I love to see it. Also notice employment, right? I do just want to disclose to everyone, we have invited recruiters in here. So if you are interested in speaking to recruiters, please engage in the chat, right? Let us know what you're looking for, what kind of skills you have. Natives in Tech is built to connect people. So please very much use the in Google chat here to talk with one another. It's not public, right? Next question, which best describes your journey in the tech space? All over, look at this. Experienced. Really, really a big group from across the board. That's really great to see. Uh, Natives in Tech is intergenerationally focused, as well as LA welcoming. So it's encouraging to see kind of everybody from across the journey spectrum here. Sunny says they're an OG now. Yeah. Hey, we're gonna go to the next one. What 1 word describes your community's strength? All right, we have some things surfacing. Knowledge being one. Listening, relationships. Dot connector. That's a technical term. Collaborator, supportive, innovative. Yeah. Love. Look at all these strengths. Look at the common ones that are surfacing. Traditions, collaboration, entrepreneurial, yeah. Understanding, compassion. That's beautiful. Okay, get into the next one. Oh, still going on. Wait, one more minute. Okay. This one's a little bit gonna maybe require some brain power. Distribute 100 points. What do you feel needs the most urgent attention in tech? What do you feel needs the most urgent attention in tech regarding sovereignty and systems? Again, what we are doing here, for those of us who are newly joining us, is Natives in Tech. We start out our conference by doing community listening, and we do these interactive polls so that when questions come up about direction or what does the community feel, we're actually responsive to what those needs are instead of what we speculate. Please, by all means, write me an email. I will put my email in the chat right now if you would like a copy of these slides. They are not personalized in any way. I'd be happy to make them available. Okay. We're going to do just a little bit of extra time on this one. Looks like we are having more people also join us. Welcome everyone in the chat. Kimberly and those who are asking, please click the link I just shared in our chat. Otherwise, you can go to menti.com and there's an 8-digit code at the very top of my screen share that you put into Menti. When you arrive at that screen, you should see this poll here. And the activity that we're doing is to distribute 100 points around what we feel needs the most urgent attention in tech as it relates to building sovereignty in our systems. I'm noticing a big focus on technical training, resource sharing, skill sharing opportunities. That's something that has also come up on our LinkedIn over and over again when we do little polls or just questionnaires to keep it interesting. Folks are always wanting technical training and skill sharing. I'm gonna wait. Evaristo says he's glad infrastructure is in the top 3. There's a lot of things that need urgent attention, it seems. If you see anything here you're into, oh, got some recruitment going in the chat with Fastly. Thank you, Sunny. Okay, looks like maybe folks have mostly submitted their responses. So we're going to go through just maybe the top 5 that the community feels needs the most urgent attention. Okay. First of those being training for technical training for youth or intergenerational. The next is resource sharing / skills sharing opportunities. Natives in Tech can definitely help answer some of those skill sharing opportunities and develop some online activities like this with different skill sharing opportunities. So I will take that one to heart as best as I can. Infrastructure and sustainability. It's incredible. There is a lot needed for infrastructure, especially I know around broadband. But also sustainability. I'm glad to see that at the top two, just personally, to be in good relationship with the planet. The next being protecting language, worldview, and cultural safety in digital spaces from malicious tech. Interesting, that one is in the top 5. And the last one of those top 5, systemic influence, aka policy changes made by, facilitated by or led by 501c4s. Natives in Tech is a 501c3, but I wonder if there's anyone in the room who is involved with C4s that might find that helpful data. Okay. Keep us going here. This is the biggest ask that we have on the next slide. I did want to contextualize it slightly. This is our impact reflection. So again, you may have heard me mention that we adopted the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And for this activity, that is the rights of Indigenous people to control, create, and benefit from their own data, digital systems, and technologies. By us, for us, put very plainly. So as an Indigenous person or ally working in or alongside technology, what matters most to you? So kindly please read each statement and then rank them based on importance, one being least and one being most important. This is a little bit different than what needs most urgent attention. This is about what is of importance to you in your career and your worldview. Okay, so there are, I think, 9, but just please rate them between 1 and 5. Again, that's 1 being least, least of matter to you, 5 being most and most essentially mattering to you. Okay. If you put 1, it doesn't mean it's not important to you at all and no one's watching. What I am trying to gauge here on is what is most important to you. What are the 5s? All of these things may be important and arguably all are important. As you go through your day and you understand how your life is going, what are the things that you're able to work with because they matter to you?
When you
There is such a beautiful focus on learning and education in this group that continues to surface year over year. I want to compliment everyone on that. If you look at what's happening, you can see there's a lot of care for our community members surfacing in these answers, right? Long-term Indigenous technical expertise, generations forward worth of benefit, protecting community control, again, generations forward worth of benefit. And arguably all of these are just very kind responses. Ensuring cultural and digital IP remains in community hands in this era of disappearing media and data sets going into places Native people don't always consent to. It's good, good that this is coming up with everyone.
right here.
About, does anyone have any comments in the chat? More training. You always need infrastructure or you rely on someone else's tools. Being able to create your own tools is always the focus on how I try to help everyone learn. Okay. As I mentioned when we first began this activity, the people in our attendee base are 72% Indigenous and representing 40 plus organizations, collectives, universities, companies, ally groups. So to see our shared values surfacing, I really appreciate everyone for taking the time to do this activity. I know we're asking a lot, like right out the gate. Okay. Next question. What do you hope we will explore? Natives in Tech Conference, we have the ability to shape things as we go. So what are you hoping to see? I'm definitely going to be looking at this and with the planning group, making sure that we meet as many of these as possible, whether it be now or in the coming year. While everyone's typing, I'm going to read a comment by Jimmy. I think strengthening our cultural identity and worldview is so important because we've had others doing this for us for far too long. It will help break down the stereotypes. Yeah. So some of the ideas folks hope we explore. Connection between Indigenous folks in tech. Yes. Talking more about the role of allies, especially as they're needed now more than ever. How to create digital spaces that are owned and managed by our own communities. How to be seen in the workforce as an equal and capable. Internships for high school students. Navigating this crazy job market and maybe about tech jobs that tribes need. Thank you to whoever submitted that. We're always watching out for how we can better work with tribes. The importance of governance, data, skills, knowledge, and the necessity of having our own infrastructure. What is everyone's story of success, challenge, and opportunity? Strengthening community in repressive times. Data sovereignty, future work, ethical, social impact. You know, with that, one of the things that when I reached out to some of our community supportive organizations, Data Reframed pulled together just a sec, I will grab it for us. Pulled together a resource, searching for the word, a resource that is about Indigenous data sovereignty, as well as gave some shout outs to members of the community, Indigenous community, who are doing excellent work. Some of them are speakers at this event tomorrow. But yeah, please go visit that. That was something built in collaboration with allies. I noticed that someone said right here talking about the role of allies. I did not have time to gather this resource together, but Data Reframed did. So it's in the chat. Please do check that out. Okay. Just continuing with the last, looks like 3 connections. What are the top 3 priorities in native tech? What does the future look like for us? How can we learn what people need, build tools that will benefit tribes and orgs that build cultural and climate resilience? And finally, having a unified future picture and plan to implement that change within tribes and tangible results tracked for the results of these community efforts and conferences that people can measure. Quality improvement. Yes. Okay. There are 2 more questions and then we will get going into some of our programming here. Please name an Indigenous role model who inspires you in tech. I'll submit one just personally. I have really been enjoying the content that Christian Ortiz is putting out from Justice AI. I see one of our board members and community members named on this role model list, and that just warms my heart. Sunny Myers. Oh, my auntie. Me too. Oh, I actually don't know how to say her name. Lilino Harbottle. I'm going to awkwardly not say my own name, but I appreciate the thing. Thank you. Jesse Gray Eagle. He's actually presenting tomorrow. Excited on that one too. Michael Running Wolf. Look at all these role models. Jeff Ward. Keone DeFranco. Yes. Everybody here. I mean, awesome. Tireo Maori. That is an organization, I believe, that Keone is part of stewarding. Luis Trevino. Everybody, thank you for putting these in. I find this very heartwarming to see peers' names, and I think it would probably be worth me putting together for everyone else a list of who these folks are, namely my auntie going to number one. Gotta love the aunties. But I could probably pull together a little list that goes out on our LinkedIn that has who these folks are and maybe a link to them. Sheila, yes, we are recording this. I see you're asking in the chat. This is being recorded. The endpoint, though, is going to be on our YouTube in individual blocks. So what you'll experience today is there'll be some stopping of the recordings because we're going to do some Q&A that, I mean, honestly, do you really want your Q&A blasted out to YouTube? No. So, you know, that's how we create space for honest conversation. Or maybe awkward or constructive feedback type of conversations. So we do record all of the presentations and we'll be uploading those. I will also be sending out these in a series of probably images on our LinkedIn so that people can grab them. The next one speaks to, and it is our last question. It speaks to one of the things that was brought up in this past slide here about how to be seen in the workforce as an equal and capable. Feel free to opt out of this question, but I believe myself and others are curious about the challenges that people are facing in tech. One of them being not seen or treated in an equal manner. And that hurts my heart to hear. But what is one of the challenges that you've faced? The purpose of me asking is, frankly, me as a board president, I do get asked about what does your community say? What are the things that people are struggling with? Ally organizations or community cousin organizations, how can we cross support? It helps me to know very simply what are you struggling with, so that when I find myself in those spaces and our board members who are on this call also find themselves in those spaces, can support in ways that we can act on. Okay, representation, funding, mentorship, being tokenized, strong voices getting silenced. My knowledge is always questioned because I'm not white. Being the only, exhaustion, unreliable corporate leaders, casual racism among everyone, and they don't know what they're saying is racist because it's been normalized. These are very vulnerable things that everyone's sharing. I do want to just appreciate that you've been willing to share them. Not being trained as a new engineer. So expecting to operate at a level that you haven't been properly trained for. You know? Family stories getting stolen. Solo advocate for massive Indigenous specific topics. Data sovereignty. Not being given work that's billable. Yeah. Being in spaces where you're the only native, it's lonely. I really encourage everyone who is feeling that loneliness. ACES has been doing a lot of good community work to build spaces that are less lonely feeling. So for example, Natives in Tech were part of ACES's AUNTIE's collective. And basically it's, women in two spirits in coalition to cross support one another. And they have multiple spaces like that. So if you are looking for ongoing year-round community, please join us at Natives in Tech. Please check out ACES. We don't have a formal relationship with ACES. They're just more cousins. But there are folks building the spaces to help us find one another. Okay. C-suites who are toxic, not being credited for knowledge. It's like someone's trying to find a job as an electrical engineer. Okay. Lack of tech knowledge and opportunity for our youth. Big tech being out of sync with principles. Leaders who are not leaders. So I want to just take a moment as we are looking through. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the kitty is an unregistered guest. This is Cheetah. If anybody is a fan of kitty cats, she's my coworker. Right. But I just want to say thank you. Again, I will make these all available to us as a group. These are extremely important conversations. They're also extremely important that we have them written down in such a way that we can share. So I will take it upon myself to tell myself to put these on our LinkedIn and make them available. I'm sure that I don't need to explain to this group why data helps us say things, right? So, actually, I see Angela has joined us. And I wonder, Angela, if you would like to introduce yourself. We're running slightly early. If that's okay with you, I'd love for you to do your own introduction instead of me introducing you as you do your talk. So with that, please take it away. I think I need to allow you to unmute. Give me just a second. Okay, here we go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Desiree. I am wondering if we're able to allow all people to unmute at certain points in our talk. Is that okay? Okay, wonderful. So, Yate, She'e, Angela Marquez, Yanishia. Tachini Nashla, Klashe, Bashichin, Kia Ani, Dashache, Tabaha, Tashanala. Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Marquez. I am Navajo. I come from the Navajo Nation, Loop, Arizona, northern Arizona, for those that are familiar with Arizona. So I am a math and data science educator here at Hashan Preparatory and Leadership School. This is a small charter school in Tucson that serves the Tohono Nation and the Pasquayaqui tribe, in addition to the Navajo and Hopi. I think those are all the tribes that we represent here at school. So I am tasked with being an educator. I feel like my whole life I have always been an educator, whether I wanted to be or not. That's just always where I found myself, and specifically in math education, that's just where I belong. So yes, I am very excited to be here. I have degrees in mathematics, biochemistry, molecular biophysics, and a master's in teaching and teacher education. And I'm interested actually to go back to school because of what I'll be presenting today. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit of the work that I've been doing. Okay, so I guess I will share. Oh, here we go. I was telling Desiree that I don't have Google Meets expertise. It's going to take me a little bit. Okay, here we go. So I allow, so you can't see my screen, or can you see my screen? You can, okay. So now that you can see my screen, I cannot see you. So I'm gonna put the link to my presentation in the chat. And I would like for this to be as interactive as possible. And so if you could go into this presentation, it's a Google Slides presentation, and you can access all of what I'm talking about today. And I see a bunch of people are joining. That would be great if, Desiree, if you could continue to share the link with folks that pop in. It's an open presentation. Everyone should have access. Okay, so yeah, we'll get started. And while we're maybe waiting for more folks, or maybe not, oops, just called someone on my phone, maybe waiting for folks, and being able to include as many people as we intend to, let's fill out this slide here. So when I'm in presentation mode, I can't see the live updates, so I'll keep it like this. But the instructions are here. If you could write on one of these sticky notes a role of, that you serve in your community. And so I have examples here. If you see something that is you, perhaps you could make another sticky note with that thing on there. And I know that this is a small space, but actually maybe we'll just do another slide. Here we go. Now that should, if you want to update, refresh the page, that'll be good. All right, so I'll create this extra slide here for us. If you want to grab one of these empty sticky notes, the question is on the first page here. Write down how do you describe yourself in your community? What is your role in your community? If someone from your hometown would come to you and they would like recognize you, what would they call you? What would they say about you? So like, for example, if I went to my hometown, I went into Luke Public School there, people might recognize me as like a math nerd, or maybe like the girl that bikes everywhere. More seriously, maybe more professionally, people would recognize me as an educator, as a post-secondary educator. So it's up to you. It's completely, you know, just free form. Just wondering how you might describe yourself within your own community. So thank you for filling those out. And I'm not as fancy as Desiree with the Mentimeter. I'm old school. So yeah, it's kind of fun to see. All right, so I see someone that likes to help everyone with their tech. I mean, it makes sense that you're here then. A sister, auntie, a friend, somebody that's silly, computer technology nerd, mentor, share of computer science, community builder, strategist, elder, so many different descriptors that you could give yourself, right? Maybe somebody is a food and sacred tobacco grower. That's pretty cool. A trusted auntie, a sister, a friend that chooses to love and positivity. Beautiful. Yeah, so this is meant for us to like informally kind of get to know one another in this virtual space, and we'll be using these sticky notes later. So you don't have to put your name on there, just kind of try to remember which one you put down would be really helpful. Okay, so I'll give folks just a little bit more time there, just in case anyone else wants to join in. So again, the question is, how would you describe yourself in your community? Ooh, yay, lots of text. Oh no, it's gone. All right. Yeah, I am a people person. I like to know people. I like to chit chat. Coffee is like my favorite thing in the world, and so definitely want to continue this conversation if you all are up for it later. Okay, cool. So we've got a curriculum developer. Ooh, nice. Perhaps an accountant, community builders, strategists. Welcome, elders. Yes, wonderful. All right, so you can copy and paste a slide or copy and paste one of these little sticky notes and make your own. But yes, this is going to be used later, just so you know. Alrighty, while folks are continuing in that, and I'll come back, don't worry, so keep going. I just want to really highlight this Mentimeter result that we just had just a couple minutes ago here. I really, really appreciate this question, Desiree. What's one word that describes your community's strength? And so I took a screenshot. I hope that that's okay. But our community strengths, what are they in your own words? Perhaps they look like relationships. In our community, we prioritize relationships. We prioritize each other. We prioritize the knowledge that we hold, our language, this idea that we listen first and talk later, right? Like that is so important and such a strength. Yeah, I think I contributed traditions and language here. But yeah, there's so many amazing things that our communities are about. We are about compassion, innovation. We're tech focused, perhaps. We support one another. You know, we have all of this incredible worldview that is totally unique to our communities, and that's what we bring when we come together. And so I just wanted to give a brief shout out there. Just such a beautiful, heartwarming question that I really appreciated. Alrighty, so there we go. Alrighty, so here is what I had mentioned before. These are my 4 clans. Tachini is my first clan, and my grandmother I'll just talk about Tachini real quick. This here is sandstone, red sandstone. For those that have been to Page area, it'll look very familiar, and it gets carved by the water. And so my first clan is red running into the water, and my grandmother had described this clan as the people that lived by the water. And when you get the mud from the little beach that's formed there, and it's a red mud, and you put it on your skin, it is the same color, that we come from the land and the land comes from us, and we are one. And so that's just really briefly the way my grandmother had described to me Tachini. And so that's what this picture here on the bottom is. And I miss her. So I'll call her later and I'll tell her I did this. Alrighty, so Indigenous Data Sovereignty and Governance Youth Empowerment course workshop. So I was mentioning that I'll be talking for a little bit, but mostly what I would like for us to do is to talk to one another. And so I have a little bit to share, but I want to make sure that we have time to get into maybe breakout rooms later to describe our role within our community and how it all ties in with Indigenous data sovereignty and governance. So again, I'm an educator. I work with K-12 students, well, K-14 until recently, and I have a special focus in Indigenous data sovereignty. Alrighty, so those of you that have access to this link, I would encourage you guys to follow this link here on slide number 6. And if somebody wants to put that in the chat, that would be great. But yeah, so these slides here, I purposefully linked them to the original source because they are not my slides. I don't want to ever attempt to claim these. These are made in collaboration with the Laboratory for Indigenous Data Governance. That includes research, policy, and practice for Indigenous data sovereignty. And so I'm about implementation, I'm about practice. I'm like, if I hear something like a good idea, I roll with it and we do it now. I'm about action. And so that's my role. I am a part of the collaboratory now for just over a year now, and I work with Dr. Carroll, soon to be Dr. Cummins, and Dr. Martinez. And we work here locally in Tucson, Arizona, but of course the Global Indigenous Data Alliance is a global environment where so many Indigenous communities across the world come together to discuss what it means for us as Indigenous peoples to own and control our own data. So again, that's who made these slides, and it's just an honor to be able to present them today. So here we have a slide that talks about our people's always have been data experts. And so I know that it's difficult in Google Meets to unmute yourself. If that's not something that we have available right now, that's okay. But you can see the different examples here of Indigenous data. So totem poles up in the Pacific Northwest. You can see a rug skin, maybe like a buckskin map here, including pictures of family members, perhaps, including animals and the land species that are available. We have beads that are made out of shells here in a certain design. There's some really cool work being done in South Dakota with a young gentleman there that is interested in decoding his tribe's regalia, his tribe's main themes in art, and how they are inherently mathematics. And so I just love that this reminds me of perhaps a number system that we don't quite understand these days. This here is an autumn planting stick. When do we plant certain seeds, at what depth, what is the water? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, sorry, I thought I heard someone. Okay. Anyway, so yes, our peoples have always been data experts, and it's important that we recognize this heritage that we have, and this idea of data science and data visuals, data collection, data storage is not anything new to us, right? Your tribe likely has their own system of collecting and storing data. For example, the story that I told about touch eating, that is data, right? It's a story that's handed down from my grandmother, from her grandmother, from her grandmother, right? These stories are how we identify ourselves and how we're able to connect ourselves to where we are from and where we belong and who we belong to, right? And so this is really important distinction for us. Okay, so before we move on, I just want to define a couple terms for us, just in case we have folks that are not familiar. The question is, what are Indigenous data? So data, information, and knowledge is in any format that impacts Indigenous peoples, nations, and communities at the collective and individual levels. And so this is in any format. I want to highlight that because, like I said, data doesn't always look like a pie chart or a bar chart, right? It can look like a story. It can look like a plant. It can look like a seed. It can look like any of these listed items here, like your clan knowledges, for example, your language. Language is data, right? And so all of these different forms of data impact us as Indigenous peoples, nations, and communities. And we as a people, as an Indigenous peoples, we need to understand that our data is sacred because our data is us. So a couple more definitions here: mainstream data science and data governance. So data sovereignty. I was just had to talk this morning for data science. Data sovereignty. So data sovereignty, the concept that information has been converted and stored in binary digital form, is subject to the laws of the countries or the country in which it is located. So I'll read that again, just blanket definition for data sovereignty. The concept that information has been converted and stored in binary digital form is subject to the laws of the country in which it is located. Okay, so for example, US Census data should belong to the US, right? I say should because there's a lot of controversy now about data sovereignty. Okay, so that's who owns the data, who has rights to the data. That's kind of how we define data sovereignty. Now, data governance is related, but it's also very similar. And so data governance, we see, refers to the ownership, collection, analysis, control, and use of the data. And so, yes, we can own the data, but how do we collect it? For what purpose? How are we able to control these data sources here? Are we able to use it for any sort of analysis? And moving forward, what kind of rights can we exert over anyone that wants to use this data? Right, that's called data governance. And so again, just very simply trying to define a couple terms here before we move on. And if you have questions, welcome them in the chat. And because I can't see any of you, just Desiree, if you could unmute and ask, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Alrighty, so just a couple more slides here from Gita. The right of Indigenous people and nations to govern the collection, ownership, and application of their own data. So applied to Indigenous communities, this idea of data sovereignty is the right of Indigenous peoples and nations to govern the collection, ownership, and application of their own data. Okay, so this is an inherent right that we believe belongs to us as Indigenous peoples. So we, our data rights derive from inherent rights to govern people's lands and resources, to the genesis and traditions, roles, and responsibility for the use of community-held information, right? That's where our data always starts. It starts from us. 3, positioned within a human rights framework in court cases, treaties, and/or recognition. It has to be legal, right? Just like we were talking about the UN Declaration of UNDRIP, UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Yeah, and so it has to be put in this framework because that's what today's mainstream society understands. And then lastly, knowledge that belongs to the collective and is fundamental to who we are as peoples. Okay, so all of these really important concepts, I think they merit us to be able to explore more, right? And so that's kind of my role, is like, if I am able to make a difference in today's world, I know that my role is to be able to pass on this knowledge that I'm gaining, because it doesn't belong to the person that gave it to me, it belongs to all of us, right? And so my role as an educator is always to look after the youth and in what they're learning, and I can do it specifically through mathematics and data science, and we all here can see ourselves as educators and can pass it on in our own way. All right, so before we move on, I'd like to just take a moment to look at more Indigenous data. So Dr. Stephanie Evergreen is a really cool data visualizer, I guess you could call her, author, data scientist that has really worked in this space for her own data visual journey and company and nonprofit and all that. But she had written an article here that I thought was really cool called Decolonizing Data Viz. And so Desiree, if we could put everyone's ability to unmute, that would be helpful. Okay, so
Angela, I think you may need to unmute, because when I added everybody's ability, you need to unmute yourself.
got it. Thank you. Is that better?
Yep, good to go. Sorry about that, but everyone's good to turn on their mic now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'll ask for your input in a minute. Okay, so this is a really cool data visual where it shows Napoleon's army in 1812, 1813 time, beginning of the 18th century, where the army went in terms of the land and at what density the army was at. And then the black represents the army coming back. And so you can see, like, there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of storytelling to be had, mapped to geography, mapped to time, mapped to, you know, all kinds of sorts of things. You can learn so much from this type of visual. And so this article is really written to show in wartime, how do we collect data and why is that important? And so here's another diagram here, again, from the 18th century, from Florence Nightingale. Actually, this is a really famous data visual. I'm sure you've seen it before. But these gray wedges, they're supposed to be blue, but just imagine they're blue, I guess. And we can read it here. The areas of the blue, red, and black wedges are each measured from the center of the common vertex. The blue wedges measured from the center of the circle represent area from death from preventable or mitigatable zymotic diseases. And so this looks like very contagious infections. And so that's the blue. is how many people died of preventable infection. The black here, let's see here, the red wedges measure the center of the dust from wounds. Okay, so the red one is people getting hurt, and the black are from other causes, right? And so you can see the majority over time, over this year that she collected data, was preventable disease. And so that's like, you know, a call for public health on many different areas, but was unique to this time in space and war. Just so happened to be where Florence Nightingale was when she was collecting this data. So it's pretty cool. Here's another one, history of the Civil War in the United States. This one I'm not going to spend any time on, but it's just a really cool example of data, how we can visualize data. And, you know, maybe if we zoomed in, we could see the different columns, we could decode the colors here, and then we could look at trends, right? Like there's so many things that you can do with this one picture. But what I want to focus on for our presentation is this down here. This is a rope data collection from it says the 15th century, and it's from the Incas, and it is a form of data visualization. And so I'm not sure if anybody recognizes this kind of image from your own tribe, but there's a rope with many strings and knots on the strings. There's a similar diagram right here. And this diagram shows, again, different knots on different intervals for different ropes. And so they say that this is used to record census data, including clan data, social rank, occupation, tax payments, all of that is used in this data collections here. Okay, so my screen is a little bit small. Let me see. I'm sorry, maybe you could look at it on your own screen since my screen is going to get teeny tiny now. But this here is a really, really cool example of data visuals that are not related, I guess, to how nowadays we use the computer to visualize data. So this person here is it says, this is a photo, an annotated photo of Pelach Iwach Pash, and it highlights the data being encoded over all his hair and regalia. And so I just wanted to take a moment with you all in this space here. If you want to unmute yourself, if you are a practicer of traditional regalia within your own tribe, I'm interested to know what do you see? So I'll ask two questions. What do you notice and what do you wonder?
Can someone else besides me, the admin, try to unmute briefly and let us know?
There's so much to notice, but my wonder here is Kipu one of the original binary codes? If I was wondering that, if it was like Kipu was the OG, because I have a lot of Ecuadorian ancestry on my dad's side, so that goes back to the Incan Kingdom. So I wonder if this guy was a Chasqui or whatever. They were the runners, and they were the ones who ran the communication along those crazily engineered Incan roads.
That's a wonderful idea. I really like that idea. It's a good wonder. Thank you. The two questions again. What do you notice and what do you wonder?
Hi, this is Sheila. I'm wondering if there's a meaning to the number of necklaces that the person has on.
Yeah, I see a bunch. Yeah, and they look like they're made out of some sort of shell. And so that's probably significant. Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm just a big data nerd. I don't really have any questions. I'm just like, I don't know. I've heard whispers about this kind of like data management, data recording, happening in Indigenous communities. And I'm just like, my jaw's on the floor. And I'm like very, as a data nerd, I don't know, I'm really interested in finding out more about this. And if like anyone can share any like reading resources for later on, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. Yes, we will definitely get there. I built a whole website, so don't worry. We're going to get there. Thank you. My notice and wonder, I don't know if I've ever seen this second, I think this is the second feather here, what he's holding. I'm sure that that's significant because I know the eagle feathers are very significant for the Navajo, but I don't know if I've ever seen the second feather. So I'll give us just another couple seconds, just very plainly, what do you notice and what do you wonder?
Sorry, I keep hitting the hand raise button instead of the unmute button. My apologies. I think that feather might be a condor feather because I think the condor is significant to the Incan
That
kingdom.
makes sense.
And the condor is a very, the wingspan is insane on that thing.
Yes. Yes, I was just at the San Diego Zoo last week and we saw the flight of the condor and it was incredible. Holy cow, I was not prepared for that.
It's great birds, aren't they? Oh my goodness.
Definitely. Alrighty, well, yes, we could spend all day here. This could be the entire presentation, right? Just this one image. We could try to decode from our own experiences, from our own community and our own languages. Like, what do you think is going on here? Like, why are there strips here? Why are there headdresses here? You know, what is the significance of the hairdo? You know, and what are the materials that are used here? Who made his moccasins, right? Like, there's so many questions, so many wonders, and every single detail, I am sure, has significance to this person and their community. And so this is an example, excellent example of data visualization that we don't necessarily think about. And so our peoples, again, have always been data experts. And so that's kind of where I kind of harp on with my students that, you know, this is nothing new. Alrighty, thank you for that. Alrighty, so as promised, here is our website, and I'll take you to this website in a minute, but briefly, I put together a mission statement, or I'm not even sure what you would call it, but I made this website with the intention of trying to recruit as many interested Indigenous leaders in this space as I could, because it is my strong belief that when we are come together, when we build things together, that they are stronger because of each contribution. And so that's kind of the idea behind this website, is that I am really looking to build a network. Okay, so for this purpose of this talk and for this website and this network, we believe today's K-14 Indigenous student population have rights to learn of the IDSOV IDGov movement. So that's Indigenous Data Sovereignty and Indigenous Data Governance movement, and need direct support and investment to become tomorrow's data guardians. And so that's kind of our mission statement here, and I'll take you now to this website here. And I'm in the process of moving it. I don't want it to be on a U of A site, University of Arizona site. So we're gonna move that. But it's just what I had to work with at the time. Alrighty, so if this is you and you are, for example, that person that unmuted before, you want to say hello, this is the way to do it. So this link here will take you to a form that gets you directly connected to me, and perhaps we can continue the conversation, because no conference presentation is ever long enough for these types of things, right? So encourage you all to definitely fill out that form. It's like a name and an email or something like that, so I can can get us connected. Alrighty, so you're here, you're curious, you're an advocate for Indigenous data governance and want to do your part as an educator. Where do you start? And so as I'm doing my literature review, as I'm collecting resources, as I'm learning myself in this space, this has kind of been like where I put things and where I've kind of like tried to make it so that we can in the future, perhaps with a dissertation or something, we can make this into some sort of curriculum that can be adapted for individuals, it can be adapted for communities, it can be adapted for schools, it can be a single day workshop, it can be a week-long workshop, it can be a whole year curriculum, right? Like I am envisioning like us, not just in mathematics education, but in all education, understanding the importance of data and how we as Indigenous people need to know about our rights to our own data and educate ourselves so that we can be those data guardians, those data warriors. Okay, so again, here's that mission statement there. And we've got a few discussion prompts here with the community conversation principles. What is data? What is Indigenous data? What is Indigenous data sovereignty? And how does this concept impact you and your community, right? And so this is just kind of like, I've done a whole hour presentation on just this. It's pretty rich, this website here. Okay, so introductory slides. We looked at this Gita slideshow a little bit. I definitely did not cover everything that was there. There's so much more there. And the collab website is also really, really incredible resource. But this is kind of just like the very surface level, introductory kind of level for those that are interested to learn more. So Indigenous data sovereignty reinforces the rights to engage in decision-making in accordance with Indigenous values and collective interests. And so if you're a researcher, for example, we can look at these frameworks such as the FAIR and the CARE principles to help guide our research and help guide how we interact and respond to and are responsible to Indigenous communities in our work. You know, what does it mean to have relational accountability in our work, and how does our positionality statement go into that, right? And so, you know, putting our community first and perhaps following the community and their needs, their vocalized needs in terms of research, community-based participatory research perhaps is what we might like to look for. And so again, this is not supposed to be something that like, oh, I got it now, you know, within 5 minutes, I totally understand. No, this is supposed to just point you towards some open source resources for us to continue our learning. That's what this space is here. Okay, so a little bit more on the care principles, and actually I'll be attending a talk and after I'm done here for the collab on this very topic. So there's always going to be recordings and resource sharing after that. Okay, so here's some links. We're some really important players all across the globe, like I mentioned. And for us in this youth empowerment curriculum, in this youth empowerment workshop that I am envisioning, I am considering that you know, all of those resources need to be taken advantage of and used for the purposes that they were built for. Okay, so again, we believe today's K-14 Indigenous student population have rights to learn of the IDSOV, IDGov movement and need direct support and investment to become tomorrow's data guardians. So this idea of direct support and investment falls on all of us as relatives, as caretakers, it is really what we need to focus our attention to if what we're building we want to sustain. And how do we do that? We do that through education. So I am building and making bridges all the time. I work at Hashan Preparatory and Leadership School, so I have direct access to Indigenous youth every day. And we explore data science topics that matter to them, and as primarily the way that they get their math credit. That's what I'm doing. And through that, I'm working with the Pasco Yaqui Department of Ed to further develop these ideas with the whole team there. AUNTIE is an Indigenous nonprofit out of Canada. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar or probably maybe are from AUNTIE. Thank you for your interest and support in this. And Local Contexts is another one, another nonprofit that works in tagging, digitally tagging digital information that belong to Indigenous communities in different collections. So like this could be in museums, this could be in different data repositories. You know, what does it look like for us to take back this data? That's primarily the work of Local Contexts. And again, as part of the Collaboratory for Indigenous Data Governance, everything that I do can be passed through this incredible weekly meeting that I have with these leaders in this space, and we do it together. So, alrighty. So I am looking at this curriculum in a way to recruit certain high schools to require, or not require, but set up internships and mentorships with AUNTIE and other communities, other companies that are like that want to get natives into tech and how we might be able to facilitate that. Local context, again, is somewhere where we can put into action what we're learning, and the curriculum building is a whole team, right? We are doing this as a team together. And of course, we need to look for funding. So this is just a super general overview of where the work sits today. Okay, so now it's our turn. And so this is where perhaps we can maybe get us into small groups. I'm not sure if that's a possibility, but I'm going to try. I couldn't do it from my point of view on the Google Meet, but maybe Desiree can, I'm not sure. But I would like for us to discuss a few questions with the remaining time. Okay, so this is the picture in the background here is Slow Horse Ranch, and this is my Chase Ranch that I grew up on, and these are our new calves this year. And it's not usually this green, but we've had a lot of rain recently, and so it looks really cool. And you can kind of see in the very corner right over here, that's our house. So it's like tiny, but you can see this is the Navajo Reservation as I know it, where we don't see another human being. Instead, we see our animals and we take care of them out in the boonies. So anyways, just a cute picture. I love to talk about my grandpa. Alrighty, so I would like for us to arrange ourselves according to our post-it notes. Like I mentioned, we're going to go back to those. And so I'll do that in just a minute. Just let me cover the discussion questions, okay? So in our small groups, there's going to be 3 main categories of questions that I would like for you all to talk about, and then maybe we can share after we come back as a whole group. So the first one is, in what way is Indigenous data sovereignty significant to you and your community? Okay, so maybe if you have experience in the field and you've had conversations and you talk about these kinds of topics in your work, this might be a good section for you. So why is it important? Where do you see need for this type of training and education? Why might this idea not be supported is a really important question. The next topic of questions, what is your role in your community? And so this looks like maybe the person that is new, has never even heard 3 words together, Indigenous data sovereignty. We can start here. And so this looks like, in what ways do you serve your community? How might your community members describe your role in your context, and how is it changing, or how might you want it to change? And so these are just kind of more general questions for those that aren't necessarily sure how to answer these first questions. Third one, in what ways might you envision your role in your community incorporating IDSOV, IDGov tenants? And so this is a natural, like if you start here, it's naturally for you to go to the last column. How do you impact your community, and how might that impact begin to include IDSOV, IDGov? And lastly, in what ways does your role include data collection, analysis, interpretation, or storage? Alrighty, so thank you for that discussion. That was really important. And of course, there's just no time, right? There's never enough time to do these important conversations. There's a lot of learning that has to be done, but now we are in a position where we can move this conversation forward. So I really encourage you all to get in contact with me to do just that. All right, so this is from a book that I'm reading. It's listed on the website, but it's also here, Indigenous Data Sovereignty Towards an Agenda. This is the first edition. I'm going to move on to the second pretty soon. But on page 169, it says, if the primary role of a tribe is to sustain its people by maintaining its resources and culture across generations, then how do data and information support the expression of this self-determination across political, cultural, and economic domains? How does data play a role when we are considering our resources and our culture and our language? How does it play a role in all sects is really at the crux of what we're talking about today. Alrighty, so our vision moving forward is up to us. You know, we have so many tools in the small group that we are, tools, resources, templates, examples of things that we can use to support Indigenous data sovereignty educational work, specifically is where I'm focused on. But in your own sectors, I hope that we would be able to use the space to continue that resource sharing. And again, anything we create, we continue to develop together. This or these ideas do not belong to one individual, but rather to us as a people. And like us as people, we evolve, we adapt, we learn, and we change. So yeah, thank you for attending today. And I really do genuinely hope to stay connected.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Angela. Everyone, please reach out to her. She's amazing. Anytime I get to interact with you, you're just so inspiring and knowledgeable and also connected. So everybody, please contact Angela. She's building a network. I think she said a couple of times. Please go if you feel that there's something there. She's literally this pleasant and nice to listen to all the time as well. Okay, so we're going to take a small breather and we're going to come back in 12 minutes at the 30-minute mark, whatever time zone you're in. It's currently 12:18 on the Pacific Coast. Just a little bio break, catch some emails, maybe get a coffee. And then we're going to come back for a panel on the role of rematriation in tech as we build sovereign systems. And if you are unfamiliar with the term rematriation, we are going to go over what that is. I'm not sure if I've articulated it, but today the programming really features women and femmes and feminine people. There is a purpose for that. We are role modeling our shared values. Tomorrow is a stacked day of all kinds of topics, but for today, we're going to launch into a panel with Elizabeth Starks from IndigiGenius. We're going to have Manisha from Program Earth, and we're going to have Sunny Myers returning, superstar, with ACES and Andes Collective, moderated by me. So if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat. I will work them into our conversation. So I'll see you back in about 10 minutes exactly, and we'll get going. Everyone, welcome back. Natives in Tech Conference 2025. If you're just joining us, we are hosting a panel this time after we've done some reflective engagement. We've heard from Angela, who's amazing. now we're going to get into a panel that has a number of, how do I say, the amazing aunties, women and feminine people who really live the values and the work together. That's the impetus behind this panel, is to really highlight there's some amazing folks doing the work on, the word is rematriation. And I'm not sure who has heard of that or not. So what I'm going to do is to take the key aspects of rematriation. I'm going to put them in the chat. It's a little spaced out, but you can read that. And I will also be bringing up a slide while we have this panel, just for the beginning, because I think it's important that we discuss what rematriation is. But before that time, I'm going to ask our panelists to please introduce themselves. I also am going to ask our Vice President and Secretary, Natalie Contreras, to join us. I think we were supposed to have one more panelist who I'm not sure if she's joining us. So Natalie's going to jump in as stand-in. We'll give her just a second. And if we would please, Elizabeth Starks with IndigiGenius, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am Elizabeth Starks. I am a board member of IndigiGenius, which is a nonprofit organization that includes a couple of different projects, including FLAIR, First Languages, AI Realities, and Lakota AI Code Camp, for which helps Lakota students learn to develop AI from their own perspectives with their own work. I'm also a research scientist over at the University of Washington, Bothell, in the Open STEM education group, and I'm a current doctoral student at University of Washington High School.
Thank you.
And I'm from San Pueblo.
I think I actually spoke over you. I'm sorry. Would you please repeat yourself?
No problem. I'm also from the Zuni Pueblo.
Okay, thank you. Sunny Myers, would you please introduce yourself?
Hey y'all, it's so lovely to see many faces, or like circles maybe, because we're on the Zoom, of everybody. Thanks for having me, Desiree. And hi, Natalie. Sunny Myers, pronounced she, her. I'm a proud member of the Lumbee and Saponi tribes of North Carolina. I currently reside in the Tuscarora homelands, which is now presently known as Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you hear my accent, I feel like I'm not a country bumpkin, but people say I have the accent, which is funny because if I live here, people say I sound like a New Yorkan or something. I feel like I wear many amazing hats and get to just be in so many cool co-created spaces these days. And it's just, it's really awesome and humbling to say that. I keep, just doors keep opening. The quantum leaps are happening and magic. And it just really fills in this path of walking, the path that the ancestors laid for me. And I really say that with a lot of just pride and joy. And also, like, some days are tiring, and that's okay. But my day job is I'm actually an engineer by trade. I'm still a nerd. I just got an email. I was like, hey, I heard you're really good at technology. You want to be in this? I was like, what? And so, but I lead employee experience and belonging at Fastly. And I'm responsible for all our amazing employee resource groups, and we still have them, and we are doubling down in this space. And so just really exciting. And then my heart work is I got to build and still building the AUNTIE Tech Collective, which is a space for Indigenous women, girls, non-binary, and two-spirit relatives in technology and innovation under ACES. So our cousins, family, our ACES fam. Just really excited to be building that. And as of yesterday, officially, today maybe, officially joining Natives in Tech on this group of baddies, and just really excited again. I'm using the term intentionally to co-create this space. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sunny. And Natalie, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. Thank you, Desiree and everybody. My name is Natalie Contreras. I am currently serving as also one of the board members for Natives in Tech since about 2021. Currently also serving in a support role as vice president for the organization. My background stems across multimedia, arts in the creative space, as well as education, nonprofit, technical curriculum development, and then more recently developing out apprenticeship models to get early stage talent from non-traditional backgrounds into roles in technology spanning across design, software engineering, data science, and digital marketing, which was the one of the newer tracks that was added. I have since my former role as program manager in my previous company at Adobe for about 5 years. And so I'm transitioning into more of this development work, but as it relates to the Indigenous First Nations background for myself, I'm actually connected to my home community in the San Francisco Bay Area of many nations, of many people across Turtle Island and across the world. And my ancestry and lineage connects me to central Mexico, the states of Durango, Michoacan, Jalisco, which is home of the Tepehuan, Purepecha, and Huirarica peoples in the mountainous regions where my family is from. I would say that something that is a highlight about being connected to Natives in Tech is as though I were to enter a space and there's just kind of a common understanding. People kind of just get it. And there's a lot I don't feel like I have to explain, which is super refreshing and not something that we get, especially not in the corporate space, sometimes in academia, but we're there. It's just, we need to make the intention to kind of gather. And so I'm appreciative for Natives in Tech Conference for hosting that space for us to connect. It's really awesome to connect with other wonderful powerhouse women and folks in the space too. Yeah, so that's a bit about me, and I'll pass it back over to Des. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Manisha, if you could please introduce yourself.
Daigwe, Johar. Hello, everyone. I am Manisha, and I am an active member of the Murmu Santali, the Murmu clan of the Santali tribe, as well as a descendant of Taino peoples. And, you know, just super grateful to be in a space where not only are we included, but we are led from a lens of, you know, our traditions, our teachings. I am actually at a conference for open source right now. So apologies in advance if there's a lot of noise. And then, yeah, and a little bit of background. Similarly, like, you know, a lot of what everyone is saying resonates. I spent 6 years at GitHub and Intel before that. And in climate policy before that. And I think what I always think about is how, you know, this identity, our community is kind of the only thing that really holds me through this journey. And now as I step in as the executive director of Program Earth, where our goal is to open source technologies for our communities, our tribes, especially at home, so that they can tell their stories, so that we are able to protect the land and water. Those are some of the beautiful ways that we have been connected with Natives in Tech on, you know, what does technology look like for our people, by our people? And I'm really excited to delve into this conversation. And if I am not on open source or like, you know, at conferences, I love actually being out on the land, making tinctures. Sunny lovingly calls me Crunchy Auntie, so I'm happy to be your Crunchy Tech Auntie today and later.
Okay, well, thank you, Manisha. Really nice to hear from everyone. I am going to, let's see if I can, oh, I did put it in the chat about what rematriation is. So I'm going to pin it in the chat in case we want to come back to that. Rematriation, just on the high level, there's a reason we're discussing it in a tech space, because rematriation does have a role in tech, especially when we're talking about building sovereign systems. Can't have a sovereign system without every voice in the room. So there's an element to rematriation that's about reestablishing a spiritual connection between Indigenous peoples instead of transferring ownership. Again, I'm going through these really quickly. Decolonization is obviously at the root of that, and dismantling patriarchal systems that are often oppressive for women, femme, two-spirit, non-binary, many people. It involves restoration of land to Indigenous stewardship. So TEK, not TECH, traditional ecological knowledge, and practicing ceremonies on the land. So we heard from literally everybody just now about what's your heritage? Why are you here? And there's this ingrained piece about reestablishing those relationships and honoring the role of women in matrilineal societies who keep traditions, ceremony, and life alive. I really feel that Angela's presentation about different forms of Indigenous data was wonderful framing and context for this conversation, right? So everybody on this panel works in that space of handling data, but reestablishing like healing and empowerment for Indigenous communities, rewriting narratives, reclaiming stories. And so this series of questions that we are about to I'm about to ask the group are all rooted in this kind of common definition. That was very expansive one, a little bit of Desiree conjecture in there, but you get the idea. So the first question, and we might only get two, but we'll see how far down we can go. Why is rematriation important to the communities that each one of you work with? And can you please tell us a little bit about what that work looks like in action? Because we could talk about theory all day long, but what does it look like in practice? So we will start with Elizabeth, please.
I'm sorry, you cut out exactly when you said who was presenting. Is that me?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I work, my role in IndigiGenius is as a sort of education curriculum developer and working with the Lakota youth. So I'll talk a little bit about that specifically. The project that we work on right now is the Lakota AI Code Camp, which works with Lakota students, mostly in Lakota areas. We have a 3-week camp in Spearfish, South Dakota, where students can come and learn from Lakota instructors, computer science instructors, about how to do AI hands-on. And so they're coming in their area, they're coming learning from their folks, their own people. And also a big part of this work is framing it, not just in learning it because it's a computer science pipeline. Honestly, I have zero interest in pipelines in terms of putting students through that. And I mean, that brings up that imagery brings up many ideas about extraction and the way that we talk about things. And I think even the language that we use is really important when we talk about technology development. We talk about pioneering things. We talk about pipelines. So in terms of this work, we make sure that the work is that these students are developing it's a project-based camp, and they're developing this year it was specifically Lakota language, natural language processing. So they developed their own models of language learning. So these students may or may not have any background in their own language. So on one hand, it's giving them the opportunity to learn and practice their language together. So everybody's getting the same type of like immersive learning together, where they're learning how to introduce themselves, how to do their stand-up. So in in tech spaces, you often have a stand up where you say like, this is what I'm working on, this is what went well, this is what I would like to work on next. And so they do that in Lakota, and so they practice that every day in Lakota of what they're going to be working on. The other part of that this camp includes getting back on the land, and so we include a plant person basically. So I'm really terrible with names right off the top of my head, but we have we have somebody talking to you about plants. They go on the land, they identify the plants, they practice image recognition by taking photos of the plants and learning the Lakota name for it. And so they're building like a quick identification app of the plants. So they're learning to know, like, when I scan this plant, I'm going to be able to see what it is. It should hopefully identify it, and we'll be able to hear the name back in Lakota. So it represents them, both the learning that they're doing and the learning that this machine is doing. The other part of this is that we're not using ChatGPT. We're not using other LLMs that exist or other image recognitions that exist. These are all onboard models that they're developing or on our own server owned by IndigiGenius. So we're very conscious about the relationships that they're building with the plants, with each other, with their language, and the impact that it's having on the systems. We're developing our own system that's sovereign. We get to decide who gets to use it, who gets to see it, and where it goes, how for them to have ideas of what they want it to look like. This is for students, for the next generation, for them to have control over and have their insights about what they want it used for. So that's a really broad overview of that project and the way that we think about rematriation in that way, is bringing back those relationships tangibly within a tech project.
Mm-hmm. What a great working example. Thank you. Okay. Sunny, would you like the question prompt again?
I think I'm good. I'm gonna watch the time because this is like my jam right now, and not because I'm just in the work and building, but also because I'm walking in this practice of rematriation. I think Manisha and I were talking last night about, is it a practice? Is it like, what do you call rematriation? And I was like, wait, we're going to rematriate rematriation. Like, it's all of the things and everything that you need. And what is that at the time? And so sometimes it is a practice, right? Sometimes it's a way. And I think we don't have to box everything and we try to binary everything. And I'm like, it's completely non-binary and it's beautiful. And I was like, that's how we're going to describe it. And so I think when I looked at my own personal and professional journey and looking at, like, you know, the data of still an Indigenous right at heart, and being an electrical engineer and being one of the only ones, not just only women of color, but, you know, Indigenous women of color, and like seeing that like only 0.1 of us earn computing degrees, like, that is wild. Like, it's such a low number already. And then to see, like, the data is not getting better. I mean, we've seen Reboot representation pour into this space and other organizations pour into the space, and they've seen success with, you know, other women of color groups like Black and Latina, but they didn't see that with our Native women, and trying to understand why that is. And some of that is, you know, we needed to start early on, right? That we needed exposure to the kids. We needed to be the students early on in middle school and high school, compared to other demographics, but we also needed to meet them in the communities, right? Like, yes, we want to give them opportunity to attend things and come to things, but we all know how it is. And hopefully if you don't, like, you can hear from us, but to be in community is like a sacred and safe space. And we don't want to also be the extractors, right? And we do know that there's potentially job opportunities, and sometimes you have to leave your community, but still having that connection is so important. And so what does that work look like? Elizabeth, I love that you connected on just language. I think when we were building Anti-Tech Collective, and working on our strategy and our Think Big plans, we kept running into this pipeline, and we're like, we are not calling this a pipeline for multiple reasons. Hashtag tell me you're native without telling me you're native. And so we were like, but what is it? And we had this like this whole idea of like this circular system. And we were like, why? Like I like clean lines. I'm a nerd. I like, organization, but I also love the beauty of the circle and the connectivity that happens and how we had all these nodes. And I heard something recently of like, the world's 6 degrees of separation, but Indigenous communities are only 3. And like that just made so much sense. And so as we looked at things like what our language was going to be, so we call our areas that we focus on our waterways, and we have connectivity between them. And we looked at how instead of our board, we have a stewardship model and what that means to steward a community and the responsibility and the roles that you have. And also the way that we need to be cared for as well. And what does that look like when it's not just extraction, it's reciprocal? We started saying, well, why do we need to do this? And what do we need to do? What does our Think Big look like for the community and not just as part of a grant? What does this look like for success for our community? And so we just really started kind of disrupting what we thought like we should do and just started thinking about how do we do this. And so we built calendars around the moon cycles instead of, oh, we need to do quarterly things. We're like, who cares about quarters? How do we lean into that, our ways, and learn together, right? For those who might not have been having that traditional like knowledge taught to us. And so we kind of just really looked at also the give back. We know as aunties in the community, one of the things that keep us going is to be able to look at our future generations and our future leaders and our leaders of today, because they're such like young baddies, and saying like, how are we also pouring into them? Because we know pouring into them fills our cups up, right? And so all this circular movement, and like I think that is what rematriation is just disrupting everything in these patriarchal societies that we've seen of hierarchy and going to the top. I think you also said, Elizabeth, about we're really intentional about not every pathway looks the same, and just because like not everybody wants to climb to the top of a ladder, like that's not, and we want to support if you want to like end up using a shorter ladder to get somewhere else, and that is absolutely okay. And we want to support you in that, because too often we're leaving Indigenous women and girls like behind because we're not willing to support non-traditional pathways to help them achieve their dreams and what they want to do, and we're not listening to that. So I think in the practice of seeing that, as when you get to build, when you get to have influence of how these systems are built, and you need to build a sustainable system or space, it's also just centering at the community at the core, and then building everything else around that. And then so all of the relationships look reciprocal. And if we're not harvesting and maintaining and really investing in our relationships, then nothing else matters. And so we just constantly recentered on that. And everybody's like, how have you gotten this thing up and running so fast, and funding? And I'm like, creator and ancestors at work, first of all, but also just like that disruption of always keeping top of mind for us, like what actually are we doing this for? Who are we doing for? And how do we do it is all important in the community.
Thank you. I appreciate that we're all like articulating the like many ways, many different systems that can be sovereign, right? I just want to vocalize like there is no one path. And if we are looking to have one path, pause. Anyways, with that, Manisha, what does rematriation look like in your everyday work?
I really appreciate, how we're all talking about relationality, because I think, when I think about my own pathway, and like hearing so many other, as I like to think, we're matriarchs in the making, like our pathways, I think a lot of what we, intentionally experienced, right, was we were going from really collectivist spaces to ones that were encouraging us to be individualists when we thought of tech or when we thought of the industry. And that was really hard because that is not our way. That is not our traditions. That is not the foundation our ancestors built for us. And especially our matriarch-led communities led for us. And I think a lot of our work really focuses on that aspect of what does returning technology to the land look like? Because, you know, before these industries, our ancestors, our elders were already technologists and innovators, and they were building sustainably far beyond the imagination of all the corporate sustainability departments out here. You know, we just did a Tule canoe ceremony in Point Reyes with Coast Miwok elders, and you know that canoe was being built from the very reeds of Tomaliwa, right? There was no transportation that we had to do thousands of miles wreaking havoc on the environment. So a lot of that, the rematriation that we think about is that relationality, you know, within ourselves and our bodies, within one another and our relationships and our roles and responsibilities and our joy shared with one another. And then also remembering that we are nature and taking care of the land, and there's that nurturing and care, and it's just so abundant because we don't have to think about ourselves. We're being taken care of in that sort of that matriarchal energy. And so what we end up doing as we are now returning that tech to the land is we are thinking about, you know, where we are in this moment and our land, our waterways. You know, there's a lot of healing that is being asked for. And so when we think about these technologies, we are putting a lot of, you know, emphasis on like, you know, the biological sciences, if you will, right? Like bioremediation, which to us is really like, you know, where do we need to restore the balance of plants? And then from a data perspective, how do we use that language of data to convey to certain decision makers what we already know? And so within that, we're finding that perhaps this is an avenue where our people don't have to leave their homes, their communities, in order to be certified as a technologist. We are actually doing some of the most innovative work in our villages, on our reservations, in our communities, because what people won't tell you is, you know, some of the hardest problems in this moment is how do we heal the land and water? How do we remember our relationship to them? And so I think if any time people ask you, you know, what is land back, just remind them that it's like also a cry for us to be able to return to our bodies so that we can take care of one another, and also stay within our communities while we raise the next generation of innovators. And one of my favorite parts of when we go out to the land is actually not just the stories that elders are telling us, you know, about the ancients and like their relationships between the plants and like the birds, or like, but we're also singing songs, right? We're singing songs to the water. We're singing songs to the trees. And that is a level of quantum computing that all of these companies are still trying to figure out. And that's why I say, like, a lot of the tech that we really need to learn is back at home.
Thanks, Manisha. And everybody, just for all of the contributions to the conversation. I feel like I learn continuously just listening in, and it's really just enriching. I wanted to ask the second question here for you all. So the question is, what are some examples of tribal, nonprofit, or community projects that are really inspiring you when it comes to community-led ecosystems or open source models that help ensure Indigenous ownership and protocols are ensured in the long term? Basically, we want to know if there's any folks in the space that you'd like to shout out that are doing this type of work?
Yeah, I can jump in of just, I mean, I don't know if this answers your question directly, but I think it's just been really cool how, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, most of us on this panel would have never known each other. And now I feel like Creator has just brought us to this space in so many different, like there's this 3 degrees that I'm like, wait, I know this person from this person and this person and this person. And now, you know, and it's just been like such this movement of rematriation that I see our, you know, women and non-binary and two-spirit folks just really being in places to lead. And we've always been leaders in our communities. Like, it's not like this is a new thing of like, oh, you could let us. Like, no, we all have roles in our community and we have been seen as leaders and you know, and so I think it's more just, you know, seeing the weight and feeling the weight of the Western world and what that's like weighed heavy on a lot of us who are in industry, who are in institutions, and having to like refine ourselves and either stay in those like and learn how to rematriate those spaces or rematriate ourselves, right? Of just like, you know, surviving those spaces and maybe thriving of just thinking about things differently. Of Manisha, you articulated so beautifully, like what is my responsibility, right? What are the boundaries that like I need to set, and what does actually that mean for my community? And so I think like I think just also like, you know, I'm heavily involved in ACES. There's a lot of OGs in ACES, and they're like, you know, I've been in ACES since I was like 4th grade, and I am not. I am one who found ACES during COVID, and like I'm the new ACES. I don't even know if it's a thing, but like I just think it's been really cool that there's space for all of it. There's space for all of this work to continue. And I've never met any of us who are like in conflict. We've all just been in relationship with it. How can I support you? And I love the work you're doing, and let me amplify you. And I'm going to share this out. And oh, I'm thinking about doing that. Well, maybe you actually like have capacity to lead that, or you have the skill sets or the resources, or, you know, this actually is better served under your organization because of the mission. I think it's just been really awesome to see the complementary spaces that happen around women in these spaces in tech, versus like it just being like, well, if you are thrive and successful, then what does that mean for me? And I have not seen any of that happen. So I don't know if that answered your question, Natalie, but that's what I'm going with. That's my final answer.
Thanks, Sunny. Anyone else would like to add to that?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay. I think there are some really interesting aspects, like when you think about a sort of sovereignty over our data, like we have to also think about maybe how it's been going on. And like, especially what I've realized is that this time actually offers us a unique opportunity. You know, in the past, a lot of our, you know, tribes have been consulted by like the Fish and Wildlife departments, and there's not really a trace of the amount of impact our work has had, right? And even like a lot of the LLMs that are now being developed by the EPA comes from, again, no accreditation to us. And so I think like when we look at like how some models work really well, I think about Synthbee a lot, even though like it's more about languages by Michael Running Wolf. It's still that aspect of like consent, right? It's that aspect of like encryption, because I think what we have to understand is our so much of our knowledge is being mined. So like as we upload these sorts of like, you know, whether it's recordings or like data or like monitoring, like how is it going to be encrypted? How is it going to be hosted? And I think there's a lot of thought put there. Looking at Pachama, who works more with like indigenous communities in South America, I think there's also a really interesting consent model there where they actually go in council member by council member by council member, and it comes up for a review pretty much every time there's like a leadership change. And I think, you know, when we think about APIs traditionally, everybody's just like, okay, well, I have a yearly subscription. But we have to move at, you know, the speed of trust. We have to move at the speed of our relationships. And if y'all are really into this, we're trying to figure out something similar when it comes to some of our traditional ecological knowledge, and would love to collaborate.
Awesome. Thank you. I think my network's a little bit slow. So I want to bring up a different way that I have come to this. This also just when we first came up with this idea, Desiree had invited me to this panel. It auto-corrected to repatriation, and I was like, oh, I think I know about that. I know about repatriation from a museums background, because I have a museums information background, and that's like, that is a way that we have negotiated with museums, with industries, with the United States, in order to get our rights back as Indigenous people, to have through NAGPRA, through the Native Americans Graves Repatriation Act, because we saw that things were going bad. Like, we saw that we were being disrespected, and so we went through these stations of processes to use their language. Like, okay, repatriation, yes, we'll use your language to get our stuff back, get our people back, and be able to create our own relations again. And so that was one of the ways we've worked with that, and that's we're similarly in a space where we're in this negotiation of having to understand these other powers, and while we're trying to maintain our own relationships and our own ways that we want things to be done. And so it requires us knowing so much about every way that we're working together. So coming from a very similar perspective, I think from the data sovereignty, I'm coming from the museum perspective, having information systems that have been built by tribal communities to respect those things. So developing models that reflect our protocols. That includes Michael Running-Wolf's work in FLAIR, the first language is AI reality, but also I'll bring up Amidalani, which is a term that means rainbow in Zuni, and this comes from the Ashiwi-Awan Museum. And Ashiwi-Awan means by us, for us. And this is a museum that was created by the people, for the people, so that we are able to maintain our own knowledge and our own ways that we connect to through our own histories, and how we relate back to institutions like the Smithsonian. How do we connect back? Like, how do we negotiate our own identities of what we find important, and while understanding their systems? So the Amidalani is a bridge. It's a database that allows the Zuni Museum to create their own database of objects that are in other institutions like the Smithsonian, other museums, and so we can correct their record. We can see their records, take it back, and say, like, this is something that maybe they just want to have their own record in the museum that lives with us, and only our certain, like, religious leaders can access it, or it's a record that has community significance, like this is something about bread making that we have lost. We don't have this particular piece of technology with us right now, but it's in this other location. We have the ability to change the permissions and be able to understand that. So this is one thing, like, we're in a very fast moving way that we're being approached to handle information, but we've been thinking about this for decades in terms of museums, and since time immemorial, how we want to share our information. We have our protocol built into our societies in the way that we relate to other beings and other people. So that's just one of the ways that I was thinking about it. And that's, I also wanted to highlight the work of scholars who are also in this space, not necessarily community organizers in the like traditional sense of like nonprofits and stuff, but also the work of like Dr. Sandy Littletree and Miranda Velarde Lewis, who do work in museums and libraries and who are working to create the structures with which community organizations can develop these models of information protection and sovereignty in their own systems. There we go. We're out of time.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, we are going to conclude for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Manisha, Natalie, Evaristo, thank you for being on camera. Appreciate you. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.